So after you've reached a point where you've filled your expressive line sketch or box with those types of lines, then you're going to move on to composing your abstract expressionist line painting or drawing using mixed media. Here, I would like for you all to really think about organizing the composition. And when we say composition, we're just talking about the place or the arrangement of objects in a picture or sculpture or a photograph or a video like this one. Here we're working in this little space. This is going to be our thumbnail sketch, and we're going to use these types of lines for that. So let's get started. Let's think about dividing this space into thirds because we're going to follow the rule of thirds. We talked about that a little bit, just to keep that in mind. The rule of thirds tells us that we can arrange our composition or rectangle into thirds by dividing it with these grids. And here I'm using an F pencil, which is fairly light because I'm going to want to erase these lines a little bit later. And roughly speaking, now I have intersections. I have divided the composition into these smaller rectangles. And again, I have these intersections here. And those are areas where I can put my focal point near or somewhere by those intersections. A focal point in a picture is a really nice thing to have because it can help you to tell a story. It helps to organize your picture, and it helps you to organize the elements in your picture, just like the rule of thirds. So let me show you a couple of examples where I have some focal points arranged at those intersections. And then you can go ahead and use the same method for your drawing. This one, I use descriptive lines to describe the shape of leaves and shields and some of the boxes. As a shout out to Julie Maharatu's work, I've used some of the implied lines here. So you can see the shield form, which could be a shield or a leaf form. And here's another shield form, but it also could be a leaf form. They very much share the same shapes, that spear tip type of shape, especially Zulu inspired shields. And then I don't know if you can see it, but the grid here, and then there's a grid here. So those lines create a grid. And you can see I have this spear tip or this shield tip right near this third. There's nothing here, but there is something here. So almost like this shield is pointing to that shield, and this shield is going back up. And I wanted the implied lines to bring our eye back this way. So all of my implied lines are going on diagonal, and they're going back that way. And I can bring some more implied lines back down here. And you might be thinking, those look like regular lines. And they are lines. And what I'm trying to imply is that there are line spaces in between those lines, just like you see here. As you can see, I've effectively created a shape. And if I wanted to, I could make that shape a little more pointy by bringing these lines a little bit further down. It's a great part about working on a sketch or a thumbnail sketch is that you can change things in your thumbnail sketch without having to change a whole big old drawing. So that's why this is so really helpful in developing your artwork. So that's an example. You can see here now I've got a shape that looks very similar, almost elliptical, definitely spear shaped or leaf shaped here. Now, of course, I want to add some more expressive lines in here, so I'm going to add some of that in here as well. I'm going to use some of these lines. I was thinking about bold lines. I was thinking about lines that express delicate feeling, and lines that also express um, bold feeling, strength. So we can put that in here too. And our thumbnail sketch would be done here. Let me show you another one. This is another example of that. Also following the rule of thirds. And as you can see, I used a hut this time. Really playing off the idea that of the paintings that we looked at of a landscape or a place of no particular place origin, right? So we're actually putting these elements in and we're going to fill them in. So here, the most important part here was to actually start with your descriptive shapes or descriptive lines. Remember, they show us outlines and forms like that. And then go ahead and then add your implied and your expressive lines here in a very sensible way. Right? You can see the lines that I intend to, or the types of lines that I intend to put here. I just wrote them down here. You may want to do that as an exercise in keeping track of what it is, what your idea is, what your main idea is. So soft, graceful, balanced, energetic, aggressive. I would say rhythmic would be another one, which I didn't have space to write. So those are the types of lines that I'm going to put in here and maintain. So what would that look like? So I'm going to use some of the same colors that I have up here since I used them already. And I'm going to put some rhythmic lines in since I just talked about that. And I want those lines to sort of go work their way from this focal point to that focal point. So here we go. Just going to go with implied lines. Yes. Remember, you put the dot right on that focal point. And we have overlapping happening too. So these shapes can go right on top. Let's make them a little bit bigger. I think as they get bigger, as they go back over here, maybe they get really large. And then they start turning into off the page. Creative, that shape there. And now let's try. Oh, so that creates a rhythm. Imagine a very soft drum beat. It goes from faint to audible. You can try to repeat that shape as well somewhere else because we want to have another rhythm as well. So maybe that rhythm is done with this side of the pen and maybe it's a little brighter. So let's use green. Let's go to this one here. And this one I want to go underneath of this shape.